What's up, everybody? This is Kepper, and thanks again for tuning in. Today is it's like it's Thursday, November 12th. It's about 12:30 here in Washington D.C. Um, Almost 24 hours after our historic election. So I wanted to make a video and talk about politics and economics, real economics. Let me just start by saying I've never really, I've really, since I've been an adult, I've really not tried to be a political person. Well, I guess political in the sense that, um, just not really buying into whether it's the status quo or just politics, or as some people say, politricks. And with this election cycle, um, and even with Obama, I mean, obviously that was very historic. And being here in Washington, D.C., living here since 1995, over 20 years now. Again, it's just the same dog and pony show. But, as I've gotten a little older, that has changed for me somewhat because, being a business person and community and having a family, politics, government, community, it is related. And, we definitely, as a business person and as someone that provides, I feel, a valuable service to the community, I need to, know what's going on and really try to strategically put myself in a position where it is to not just my advantage, but the people around me and the people that I care about, my community, etc. So with that said, this election, how could I gotta admit, I was very captivated, way more captivated than the previous 2008, 2012. And let me, once, because the thing is that when you understand the media, how the media works, and when I say media, I'm not just talking about CNN. The media is mass media entertainment. So when you watch, if you watch, the movies that come out, television shows that come out, oftentimes they're using those as platforms to sway opinion, especially with entertainment. Entertainment. We're looking to get entertained, and we go into what we see or what we know to be somewhat of a trance. We sort of let our guards down mentally and allow our psyche, subconscious, to be influenced when we see things play out. And with that said, the show Scandal, I was a watcher, and that show, very interesting because they pretty much laid out what has, that show was pretty much following along how this election went. Now, I did post on Facebook that when Trump started campaigning, that Trump would be the winner. And the reason I felt as such is because of just how much media attention he was getting. I mean, it's one thing to come out and make crazy comments, but just the I mean, it's like everywhere you turn on the computer, you turn on the television, Trump, 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 Trump. It was like, people who understand power and understand the media, any attention is good attention. So Trump was getting just mass high level attention. I felt like he would be the winner. And nobody was talking about Hillary at this point, because Bernie Sanders was still in play, and with Bernie Sanders in the mix, and it wasn't until Hillary became the Democratic choice that Hillary was really being pushed by the mass media cycle. And to even come back to Scandal, the last episode of Scandal, they had Mellie, who was the estranged wife of the president. Again, this thing played on so many parallels. Obviously the president being a philanderer, a la Bill Clinton. His wife now runs for president after being senator. She was senator of Virginia on the show. Hillary is senator of New York, then later became Secretary of State. And then the very last episode, she was winning over the Republican or the businessman who obviously was synonymous with Trump. So again, it's like, you watch these shows, and really that's what you get. When you watch these shows and movies, it's, obviously that's what the power elite is showing you to sway you. So it's really hard for me to take these things seriously. Once your eyes are open, it's like that movie back, I believe it came out in the 80s, They Live. You put the shades on, the shades allow you to see. You see through all the craziness and the madness. And so yeah, if you haven't seen that movie, definitely check that movie out. I think I have the copy of it, but They Live with those of you who used to follow wrestling back in the day, Rowdy Piper was the main character. Classic movie, They Live. So yeah, so just having my eyes open, and seeing with my third eye. I thought that Trump would be president. But leading up to the election, it was very interesting because you could see that the mass media was really doing its darndest to get Hillary elected. So this really kind of confused me because with Trump getting really a lot of attention in the beginning, so much so that there was really no other Republican to even come close to challenging him. And then you have him and Hillary. Now, one thing about, I watched the debates. I mean, Trump, he's an entertainer. I mean, he's I mean, from that standpoint, Hillary is the same old, say everything that you're supposed to say, and just again, she makes people feel comfortable, and I mean, just with seeing how people are responding emotionally to this is just, I don't know. I guess people, really are really emotionally invested, and it's again, once you see the circus for what it is, it's a game. So, but again, this game is real because it does affect our community, which affects our families. As a business person, that's my livelihood. So these things do trickle down to somewhat. But a couple of weeks ago, I gave a presentation entitled "Real Money: The Foundation of Freedom." Now, we work, and we if you work, hopefully you play, and then you work. You work to play, have a certain quality of life, and with working, we obviously work for to make money, and that money is a certain perceived value with that money. It's able to pay bills and buy things, and do certain other things that save, invest, um, vacation, spend, entertainment, etc. Uh, now, when we really, prepare for this presentation, I've been since I was in grad school, I've been into investing, specifically in the stock market, and I've done like day trading, swing trading. I've done some long-term investing, with stock options, ETFs now. Excuse me. So, in the last decade or so, I've definitely been into precious metals, and that's what my presentation was about. And while I was preparing for the presentation, it really forced me to really look at the monetary history of this country, because in our Constitution it talks about, it mentions gold and silver being proper or real money, and then when we really start looking at the characters, the different people in our history, the history of this government, the history of banks, and the history of this in this country, we really start to, it really is relevant to today. And I'm going to really try to tie all this in, to this election, what it means for us, and how we should move forward, mentally, or definitely not emotionally. If you're responding, let me just say, if you're responding, I always say, you either playing chess or you playing checkers. If you playing chess, you already saw this coming. And even though, once the results started coming in, I knew Trump was the winner. But I had to stay up just to watch, just to see. It was believable and unbelievable at the same time. So back to preparing for my presentation. What I began to really uncover is being someone that is now into what we call real money. And let me just say, real money is something that, one, is not digital, it's not paper, and it's something that will last forever. And historically, there's only one commodity, not currency, but commodity that fits that bill, and it's precious metals, namely gold and silver. You have some other metals like palladium, platinum, and there's another class. There's even rhodium. which is mainly an industrial metal, but some people consider it precious as well. Those metals, that commodity is again is something that's timeless and something that's real. With currency, for the for the people that are really into it, we understand that when we see the powers that be, the power elite, um, you start with looking at the banks. I mean, namely the Federal Reserve, and we'll really start looking at the how it even creates currency, not money. It's a difference, currency, because what's so masterfully wicked about our power elite banking global system is that when we scan the globe and we look at all of the valuable resources, gold, silver, oil, materials that like tin and cobalt and diamonds. I mentioned oil, food, even land. We human beings, we are a resource. So you get the picture. Now, when we look at if you go around the world and you see, you identify all the different resources that are on the globe, that are on the planet, and then you have a select group of people who massively have control over all of it, and their record of account is essentially paper. So they basically issue the paper, and today it's not even paper, it's numbers on a screen, it's all digital, at least most of it anyway. But just for the sake of this discussion, or this, what I'm saying here is that they issue the paper, and the paper basically is the exchange between goods and services. Now, if we look at, let's just take, for example, because I really want to, just show one example, like in our modern history, like, between in the last decade, we had the real estate bubble. And, I mean, every year houses was appreciating in value, at least 50, 100,000 every couple months, or every year it was another, you could tack on another 100,000. And this was going up year after year. Now, the question I have is, were any of those houses truly more valuable? I mean, did the house get bigger? Did the house have, obviously, for people who did real estate flipping, they would buy a house, maybe fix it up. Okay, in that sense, okay, you put new appliances in there, you paint, you maybe knock down some walls, you rearrange your rooms. Okay, in that sense, it becomes more valuable. But the land essentially is not more valuable. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, I mean, but you didn't even have to do that back 10 years ago. You didn't have to do that. You just basically had to buy, wait, and sell. And it was the same house. My point is that through through currency manipulation, the perceived value was increasing. but it was the same house at the end of the day. It's the same oil, the same food, the same service. If I'm selling uh, a service or a good for $10, and then I say, well, let me increase the price. Is it really more valuable? No, it's not more valuable. That's my whole point. Is that, value, uh, again, it's all perceived. And certainly with supply demand scenarios, things can become more valuable if you have limited supply and increased demand. However, and I think, and that's essentially how they engineered the real estate, is because they created the supply was the buyers. They because they opened up the credit where it was basically anybody could sign their name and get a house. The supply of buyers was increased greatly with the same demand. I mean, with the same you had an increased supply of buyers, but the same amount of houses essentially. So basically, that allowed, because there were so many more buyers, that allowed them to inflate the prices. Now, why is this significant? Well, because this is the money, the currency that we're all chasing. And when we're chasing this currency, what it's doing is, by everything getting inflated, our houses, education, services, when these things are getting inflated, it's basically, it's like a hidden tax. It's a slave tax, essentially. It makes us all slaves, because the money, currency, through its because it's being manipulated, because it's being devalued, it is and because that's what we work for, that's what we look to, that's where we we our essence, our soul is, our work. And when we're not able to, it should really be the other way around, if anything. But so it devalues us, because that's what we work for. And so our work becomes that of, very similar. Again, it's a system of slavery. And it's so covert, and it's so masterfully wicked, as I like to say, that we accept it willingly. So, how does this tie into? Well, let me bring it back to my presentation, because basically there were two figures that I highlighted in my presentation. Looking at the United States, and one was Alexander Hamilton, and the other was Andrew Jackson. Let's see if I have. Okay, I don't have any cash on me. Currency, paper. But Alexander Hamilton is on the $10 bill. Andrew Jackson is on the $20 bill. They really represented. Andrew Jackson would be today's Republican. He would be Donald Trump. Alexander Hamilton would be today's Hillary Clinton. He would be today's Democrat. Now, they had different parties, and I'm not really that astute at American history like that. But nonetheless, that would be the Republican, Andrew Jackson. Alexander Hamilton pretend would be today's version of a Democrat. Now, why is this relevant? Well, if we look at Andrew Jackson very quickly, we know that he was very he ruled with, as I say, the iron fist. He slaughtered, genocide Indians, Native American Indians. He was a slave owner. They say he owned maybe over 1,000 slaves in his lifetime. Had a 1,000-acre slave plantation. So, for all the transgressions against humanity, he believed in sound, real money. He was actually credited with killing the second central bank of the U.S. So he didn't believe in paper currency. However, what kind of became clear to me is that you believe in real assets, real commodities, but there isn't a respect for human life that was different than you. So in terms of you looked at the Native Americans, the Indians, you looked at the Native Africans and saw them as lesser than, or you saw them as commodities, very similar to gold or to silver. Now, does Donald Trump take it that far? I don't think so. But then again, I don't know. But what's important is that, watching the election results unfold, they talked about race more than anything. It was very clear that the people that put Donald Trump in the White House was white, rural Americans. Okay? And, what's interesting, living in Washington, D.C., I've had the opportunity to drive across country a few times. And, once you 30, 40 minutes outside of the city, the energy, the complexion, the vibe, everything changes. Once you hit rural America, and this is at least land-wise. I mean, the cities are concentrated masses of people, but obviously most of the United States is rural. It's country. It's, I guess, poor, for lack of a better word. And it was just so funny to watch Hillary, have celebrity and celebrity endorsement after celebrity endorsement, and then she even Republicans were endorsing Hillary. But no matter how many how many people love people like Jay-Z or Beyonce or LeBron James, these are all people that were on the campaign stage with Hillary. I mean, you got to ask yourself, in the end, are these celebrities making significant change in people's lives? Are they investing in these communities to the extent that they're giving people jobs? No. All they're doing is entertaining. Which is what this whole, which is why, Trump had such an appeal. And because of the language and the arrogance and um, the the image that he worked and that he portrayed, there was really an appeal to it for the people that that have been basically forgotten, whether it's through the Obama camp or and now which Hillary was continuing. That was clear. So people were ready for change, and Donald was the other choice. And so going back to Andrew Jackson and with the Donald Trump comparison, and why race was important, because Andrew Jackson, what he represented was obviously tyranny and white supremacy, white privilege, and when we look at the masses of when we look at the mass populace of this country and it being white and rural. Now, I feel confident that I can drive across the country and not something crazy happen, like I'd be lynched or anything like that. However, look, I drove, I I certainly feel uneasy, when I go into these areas. It's like gas up the car and keep it moving. Um, so, the history, when we look at the history of this country, and we look at the makeup of this country, that divide, as they clearly laid out, not just with this election, even in the media, they had to acknowledge the fact that there are basically two different camps, in terms of how this country is laid out. So with that said, we look at Trump. He appealed to what this country has historically represented. Now, is it still that today? Obviously not that, but it still lives in the hearts of people, even though we don't live in a system where we're necessarily killing the Native Americans in the way that Andrew Jackson did. But again, that's not to say that that spirit is not dead. So that's my whole point. Now, Alexander Hamilton. Now we don't know. Again, I'm not the greatest historian on American history, but from my soft research, we don't know necessarily that he was a slave owner, and but what we do know is that he represented the other side in terms of central bank. He was credited with starting central bank in the U.S., the first central bank, which after its charter, it then became the second central bank in the U.S., which Andrew Jackson was credited with killing the central bank. And for 100 years after that, which was in the early 1800s, from the early 1900s, that's when our current Federal Reserve was enacted. So from that 100 period of time, basically money, we had, and as a country, we had sound money. We had money that was not inflated. What you would buy with $1 in the early 1800s, you can buy with the same dollar in the early 1900s. Now, Alexander Hamilton, who's on the $10 bill, he's been in terms of the history of our paper currency, he's been represented on, I think, even though he was not president, um, he's been represented on, I think, more currency than any other person, which shows you that there's been a reverence, and in terms of the power elite, and when we tie it back to the bankers who really run the world, they don't own anything, but they control everything through this paper digital currency. This is what Alexander Hamilton, this is what Hillary Clinton was about in terms of maintaining the status quo, maintaining the power elite. Now Donald Trump, I mean, he's in the family. We know that every U.S. president is part of has the quote unquote royal blood. They're all descendants of the English royalty, even Obama. So they're all family. So this is like infighting between family, and we again, it's theater, it's chess, and as the little people who really out here, working to survive, we just have to understand that, number one, we don't get emotionally invested. We think we think critically. We see 5 moves ahead, and what we can do now, especially in terms of because the thing is that even though Donald Trump would be closer to Andrew Jackson, Republicans, Democrats, they're still about really creating debt, because the thing is that even with Alexander Hamilton, even though he don't own slaves, maybe he did, but it's likely that he didn't. So for the sake of this argument, let's say that he didn't. The money system, in the way it's designed, is really to make everyone a slave. So that was really the epiphany I had when I was preparing for my presentation, because it's like, okay, we felt like slavery ended, and in a sense it did. I mean, to not be bound on land and work from can't see to can't see, and to be oppressed in that way, to go into really a system of debt, covert slavery, a slavery that you don't necessarily with an unseen hand, but it's still slavery nonetheless. So the thing is that Democrat, Republican, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, it may taste a little different, but it's still the same food. And slightly different packaging, but it's still the same ingredients. And with real money, sound money, hard money, as some people like to call it, that's what is going to make a difference in terms of your freedom. When you work, for every dollar that you earn, you want to that's energy, that's your soul. You want to transfer some of that money into something, or some of that currency into money. And especially if you have any kind of retirement, any savings, retirement, insurance, because really that is the only insurance. So it doesn't really matter, again, the election is more of a distraction. It's something that just basically keep us not focused on what's real, especially in terms of economics and money. It is the only system that they can't manipulate, and which is why they went off the gold standard really just to begin with, because there's only so much. Again, these people are about ultimate power, ultimate control. They want to make everyone basically a slave, not even a debt slave, but a slave. Period. Just long as it, nothing threatens their power structure. So they're definitely all about New World Order, creating order, and Donald Trump has said that. When asked about police brutality, he comes back with, we need law and order. Like, we need more of the same. So the thing is that in my eyes, when we have people like Hillary and Barack Obama in office, that's even worse. People are out protesting. It in one sense, this is good because now it raises people attention, awareness. When you have somebody like Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton, you don't see these people as evil. And I'm not going as far as to say that they are or they aren't. My whole point is, like, people get comfortable. And when you get comfortable and you think that that these people have your best interests at heart, and they really don't, then you continue on basically being a slave, a willing slave, where if you have somebody like Donald Trump, then your radar is more alert. And the thing is that once, and which is why I knew Obama in 2008 would be elected or elected, because because Bush was so inept and so he was just bad. They could have really had anybody come in from any Democrat, and he would have gotten elected very easily because of how bad Bush was. It was just so transparent that he was just not fit for any type of to be the leader of anything. That and then he came with this whole message of change. People was ripe for that, and people felt like, especially black people felt so they felt validated, and that's really anyway, I'm not gonna go off on that. I'm just gonna say that having Trump in this position is essentially I think more of a good thing than it is a bad thing. It's not going to necessarily affect anyone's day-to-day. Your day-to-day, in terms of what may or may not affect you is obviously in your local, your local mayor, your community leaders. There's those positions that are worth voting for. Not necessarily these big, these big elections and electoral votes, and all of that. So, with all that said, in the end, invest your money or invest your currency into sound money, something that's real, something that's tangible, and vote for yourself. I put out a post that, it's not about, when you vote, psychologically, you cast a vote, and especially if you're emotionally invested, you're looking for somebody to do the things that you can do or you have the power to do. Remember that the power is always with the people. And you as an individual have such a great influence, not just over yourself, but over your family and your community. So, this is a time in this election season to vote for yourself, to empower yourself, to make a difference in your community. Volunteer. You can, or you can even start to call out and make the people that you do vote for accountable for your vote. So do that. Vote for yourself. Invest your currency in real money, and start playing chess. Stay away from emotional responses. That's it for now. Look for my health videos coming out